east of Farhorn. Having made the long journey to Carrick alive, Ilian felt relief as he strode towards the town down a curving path that snaked down from a small hill above it. Ilian walked into Grendel Inn after a long day's worth of travelling to his friends in Carrick. The Grendel Inn was the popular meeting place where most of Carrick's residents met, and the best place to catch any news about what was going on in other parts of the world, and occasionally a bit of excitement. Ilian surveyed the room and spotted his cousin Peter, who waved him over with a smile. "Ilian," he said. "Good to see you again, cousin," he said with a genuine look of concern. "The roads are getting more treacherous every year." He beckoned him over with a wave. Ilian walked over and heaved himself onto a chair. "You can say that again," Ilian said. Peter shook his head. "These are strange times indeed." The two briefly embraced before sitting down. "Where is Ilian began. Suddenly the doors to the Grendel Inn were thrust open, and a dark, green-cloaked figure strode in, with a bow and arrows strewn across their back. The figure approached the counter and removed their hood. Two pointed ears revealed the figure was a fair elven lady. Ilian and Peter watched with great interest, and their argument was suddenly dropped by the appearance of the elf. "All the way from there," Peter whispered. "You never see elves these days here, at least not anymore." "I've never seen one here before," Ilian replied back. "Why do you suppose she's come all the way from there to here?" Peter shrugged. "If only Eleanor were here, she'd never believe us if we told her." She tossed 3 gold coins onto the table, then spoke in a language that Peter and Ilian couldn't understand. Even if they could, she spoke so quietly they could barely make out what she was saying anyways. The whole inn was silent now, gazing from their tables at the elf. She suddenly banged her hand on the table and muttered something in an elven tongue. "Everyone is here on Hasvar," she said, and with that she pulled up her hood and stormed out. Instantly the whole inn crowded around the old innkeeper Stavros, who waved them away, saying she had come to ask for a strange elvish brew, to which he replied he didn't have. That dispersed the crowd with a laugh. Another figure came into the inn at the same time. Passing by the elf, she stormed out. She looked at the elf with wonder as she made her way into the inn. Seeing Peter and Ilian, she walked over to them. "Did you see that?" she asked. "A real-life elf." "We know," they both cried out, as Eleanor sat down with them, and they recounted what happened. "Stavros knows Elvish," she said, surprised. "Wow, he sure is old." "Too old, if you ask me," Peter said. "He's been through a lot." "All the way from the maze," Eleanor said. "He's been all over the world." Eleanor had dark red hair, and even darker eyes, and a very deep Carrick accent, in contrast with Ilian, whose dark brown hair rivaled hers. "Well, how are things in Carrick?" Ilian asked. "I heard there was a fire last season. You could see the smoke all the way from Farhorn." "It was that damned Roberts kid," Peter said. "Bloody pyrotechnic. I knew he was trouble from the start." They talked a bit more about the events that had come to pass in the last year, before Eleanor finally broke the ice. "So, did you bring it?" she asked. "Here." Ilian reached into his pack and searched through the dozen or so things he had. A horn, a few silver coins, a strange-looking leaf, rations for a few days, a water bottle, and other things like that. Finally, his hands felt the parchment that had gone through a lot to get for over the past year. He unrolled it onto the table, and they all crowded around it. There was a detailed drawing that showed the area between east of Carrick and the west of Stonekeep. Ilian traced his finger on the map, then tapped on a spot twice. "Here," he said. "It's here." Eleanor and Peter both looked at the spot where the map was labelled as Crooked Crag. "Are you sure that's where it's at?" Peter asked. "Certain," Ilian replied. "Said himself." "Old Harry better not have gotten his facts straight," Peter said. "I wouldn't be too happy if we did this for nothing." "He was telling the truth," Ilian said. "How could a dying man not?" "Well, what are we waiting for? Ye geese, let's go," Eleanor said, slinging her bow across her back. Peter picked up his assortment of axes and his helm and followed her. Ilian took his bow and slung it over his shoulder and fastened his belt, which held his sword. "All right, let's go," Ilian said, and with that they stormed out of the inn.